Hey everybody, welcome to Book Scoop, the latest edition of what's new at the library. I'm Priscilla.
I'm Martsje. And I'm Sarah.
And we're going to talk about some books that were published in the month of July, as well as I have one from June.
So allow it.
I'll start. The first book I want to talk about is a picture book called That's Not My Name. And it's about a little girl whose name is Martsje, but who gets called everything else imaginable. And people are all often asking if they can just call her what's easy and not what's actually her name, which is so rude. Mm-hmm. And yet we do it all the time, right? You know. And so I think this is a great book for any child who has an unusual name and any adult who has an unusual name, and how you really do have the right to make sure people say your name correctly and not shorten it for their own convenience. Mm-hmm. So a wonderful picture book that I think everyone should read.
And even if like your child has a kid in their class that maybe has a hard name, right, that's a great book to read, so you can talk about that's their name and you have to try hard.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I don't have that hard a name, mm-hmm, but having Priscilla as a first name, I've been called everything that starts with a P that you can imagine. And also having a hyphenated last name, people feel like they can call you by just half of it anytime they please, which, you know, is rude. Mm-hmm. It's my name. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people understand this, but it's really important to read it and remind ourselves how just basic human decency requires that we make every effort to get people's names correct. So my other two books, this is The Littlest Library, obviously, by Poppy Alexander. I would want to do this. This came out just at the end of July. If you're looking for just a fun, lighthearted, warm feeling book, this is it. About a librarian in England who gets laid off because they're closing libraries, and she has just recently lost her grandmother who raised her and who she was very deeply attached to, and kind of on a whim moves to Cornwall, buys herself a little home, and on the property there's a defunct phone booth, and she ends up starting a library in the phone booth. It's The Littlest Library. And it's just a heartwarming story about making new friends and, you know, trying new things, and a great lighthearted read if you're looking for something to lift your spirits. The Littlest Library.
And doing what you love.
And doing what you love.
Yeah. Despite
what
life throws at you.
Yeah. So that's a wonderful book. And this is the one from, I'm on a kick of British authors here. This was actually published at the end of June, but I'm going to plug it anyway because I love this book. Iona Iverson's Rules for Commuting. This is about a woman in her late 50s facing a lot of ageism at work, and she commutes on the train to London every day, has forever, sees all these people who she kind of has made up names for on the train, but they've never spoken. And then one day, one of the men starts to choke. And so a bunch of them have to help him. And after that, it's hard to ignore each other. But they don't actually like each other at first. And, but slowly but surely, this friendship and camaraderie starts. It's told from the perspective of 5 different people. Oh. So each chapter is from a different character's perspective, but Iona is the main character. I love this book. It absolutely has everything to make you feel like, yes, humanity does have good sides.
It sounds like it could be a comical book, too.
It's fairly comical. I mean, there's parts that are a little tough, because everybody's facing a little bit of hardship in their life, but it's also, yeah, it's also fairly funny. And Iona is quite a character, which I enjoy. So that is a great book, Iona Iverson's Rules for Commuting. Not published in July, still worth reading.
All right, this book was published in July. It's called The Hiking Book from Hell by Ara Calver. I don't even know where to start. This is such a funny book. I'll tell the storyline a little bit. The storyline is not so funny. It's how he writes that's funny. He grew up in the countryside. It's a non-fiction book. It's a memoirs. In Norway. And slowly but steadily, all his friends started to go hiking. His friends from the city, and to become one with nature. And he kept wondering, what is it? And eventually he thought, well, there must be something to it. So he decided to go hiking with a friend of his. So this is his story about getting hiking gear and then, you know, do hikes in nature. And I cannot explain why it is funny, but I hardly ever laugh out loud when I read a book. I laugh out loud many times when I read this book, and I find it tough to now return it to the library so someone else can have it, because I still open it at pages and they go, oh yeah, this is so funny. He's a stand-up comedian, and he did a great job. I will read, because there's a glossary in the back here. It's a great glossary. And I will read you the start of the glossary. So, useful words and expressions to learn if you're going to the mountains. Nice is cold. Lovely is cold. Pretty is cold. Nice and lovely is cold. So that gives you an idea of how much he loved finding out. And of course, you know, I read this in my backyard, and it's nice and lovely, and I read about how he trudges through snow and walks in the woods, and it pours and it never stops. And the best part, I think, is when he goes climb mountains to have a wonderful view, and there is only fog, and there's fog a lot of the time in Norway, because, you know, that's the climate we have. And how he describes it, and it's very fun. That's all. The Hiking Book from Hell.
Sounds fun. I read a middle grade book again. This is called Chester Keane Cracks the Code. And I have to say the reason I chose it is because of the author. The author is Kekla Magoon. And she wrote Shadows of Sherwood, which we have done for book clubs before, which is kind of like a retelling of Robin Hood. And I absolutely love that book. So I thought, well, I'm going to read this one. It's very good. It's a little bit mystery, a little bit adventure. We meet Chester Keane. He lives with his mom. Never met his dad before, but he receives messages from his dad through email. And he's a very regimented young boy, like older elementary, middle school age. And he doesn't have very many friends, and he's the kid who gets picked on at school, and there's a bully, and he doesn't really want to tell his mom about the bully because he doesn't want her to be worried about him. So he sends emails to his dad, and his dad sends back emails to him with advice, but hasn't heard from his dad for a little while. He's getting worried about him. And so he's going to school, and out on the doorstep receives a package with 2 clues in it about like a scavenger hunt kind of thing. But he receives clues 1 and 4, not 2 and 3. And when he gets to school, there's this girl, Sky, who comes up, and she seems to kind of know a little bit more about what's going on. She has clues 2 and 3. And so the two of them team up to go on this scavenger hunt and figure out the clues that they get along the way. They run into some serious trouble where they're actually in danger. And then things resolve, and it's a good book. Not exactly what you're thinking at the beginning, but it's very good. Talking about family and who makes up your family. I would highly recommend the book. Yeah.
Yeah, Captain Magoon is a great author, so
Yeah.
I can definitely see I want to read that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it proves that kids can do things that are not always safe
Absolutely.
and survive them.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. Yes. Yeah, I would not want my children to do what happened in this book, but it makes for a great story to read, and it helps understand where the people in the story are at. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point of reading fiction, in
Right?
my opinion, is like it teaches you empathy, and it also teaches you kind of vicariously problem solving when you see a character begin to learn to deal with issues that come up for them. So, yeah, I think reading about it may be better than experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think living vicariously is the good way to go.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's it for this edition of Book Scoop. We've got a lot of great July books here. And there's more here at the library that we haven't talked about, so do stop by and see everything that's new at the library. Thanks.
Thanks.